And welcome back to those of you who were here before. And if anyone's here for the first time, welcome. Glad you're here. Maybe while we're waiting for people to join, I'll start our introductions. So we have Jen Chandler. The three of us who are who have put together these sessions and are leading them are Jen Chandler, if you want to wave, Jen, who is our Director of Operations, and Nico Brown, who is our Chapter and Membership Coordinator. And I'm Margot Frank, and I've been part of, as a volunteer, the National Leadership Team for the last 6 years. So it's really good to be here with all of you again this month, because we have a small group to start with today, but we're really glad that all of you are here. I'm wondering, well, before I get started, I want to just add that I want to really welcome you. Thank you for being here. And for those of you who were here for our first session last month, where we talked about privilege and bias, and some of you shared some feedback with us after that session. It was really helpful. We appreciate that, and we hope at the end of today's session that we will hear from most of you. It really helps us in planning these and understanding what people's needs are and kind of where you are. Some people who were with us for the first session said, oh, you were just right on for where I am with my own work around this. Some people said, oh, you know, I've been doing this for quite a while. This was nothing new to me. It seemed a little basic. And other people, it was a bit of a stretch for. And so I just want to acknowledge that, of course, we have people coming to this coming from all different levels of understanding and experience in looking at climate justice and equity. And I want to, whether this is new to you or you have been deep diving into this for years, I want to invite you to just come to this workshop with a sense of curiosity, with beginner's mind. There's always something new, a new perspective that we can gain, even if we think we know a lot about something and have a lot of experience with it. And, you know, this is a journey we're on. It's, we're not here with quick and easy answers, but we're finding those answers together. And we want to really be able to explore these topics collectively. So the chat box is a great way for us to do that. And we'll be in breakout rooms quite a few times during the webinar today also. We have up on the screen now the slide with the questions that we asked you to reflect on. We gave you some questions to think about, and also quite a list of resources that you might have had a chance to delve into, some or all of them even. And so we'd really like to hear about from each of you what you've been thinking about and what has changed since we met a month ago, and any of reflections that you had from these questions, and to put that into the chat box. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to do that, and you can share those in the chat with everyone so we can see what you've been thinking about. So I'm not actually seeing anything showing up in the chat box. Jen, did you get any? Oh, there's one person who's shared something. So one person, Kimberly, says that she really enjoyed speaking with people from different races last month and hearing their views. Any other thoughts or reflections? Yeah, Jen?
Mark included how to message and overcome.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you, Mark, for mentioning that. In fact, Mark, would you like to say a little more about that? You want to unmute and just share a little bit?
Well, I think the reason it's a problem is simply just because it's not anything people want to even think about. I think it's just so completely endemic that people just simply don't get it. And I think a lot of that stems from, I guess I see it as a kind of a perversion of the golden rule, which is sort of, I mean, this may sound a little harsh, but I think there's a lot of fear. And what I'm getting at is, what if they being the marginalized, do unto the privileged what the privilege is done unto them. And so I think if you could really strip things away, I think there's some of that, and you'd also get people, contemporary people, saying, well, look, I didn't participate in what happened in the past, particularly say 100, 200 years ago, or I didn't live in the South where it was worse, or any of that, and so I didn't do that, and that's why I'm saying it's really hard to overcome.
Hmm. So you've really been noticing all the barriers that we're encountering in this country.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Um, let's see. Lori, do you want to share a little bit about what you said? You said, I've learned we need to meet people where they are.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I just spent a year in a racial justice group at my Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, working with other folks in the group. And then when the group presented a racial justice statement for our church, which we worked on very hard for a long time, got lots of input with our minister, and then we presented it for the congregational approval, and you wouldn't believe the pushback we got. You would not believe it. So when I was at the Unitarian Universalist General Assembly, it's via Zoom, Stacey Abrams was one of the speakers, and that is what she said that really impacted me, and realizing that I did the work. I'm continuing to do the work to educate myself, but there are so many people that aren't. So I agree with Mark about it's so endemic within us that folks just don't get it. And they felt like they were being called a bunch of racists. We had some, I mean, I couldn't believe this at a Unitarian Fellowship. What can I say? So that's why I put that, and we're completely having to reorganize how we're going to present this. I'm also on a climate justice task force for our fellowship, so we can become accredited to be a Green Sanctuary 2030. It's a Unitarian thing. So that's a 2 to 3 year process. So we'll see how people react to that. I can't wait.
Okay, well, thank you. So I hear that some of what people have encountered is the challenges that we face, and the surprise that not everybody is at the same place that you may be. Thank you so much for sharing those. We're going to move on. I'm going to pass the baton now to Nico, who is going to talk to us about, get us started looking at what is inclusivity. So take it away, Nico.
Thank you, Ms. Margot. Good evening, everyone, or good afternoon, depending on your time zone. I'm so happy to be here with everyone today as we embark on month 2. And this month, we're talking about inclusivity, access, and allyship. And so the first question is, what is inclusivity? And so if everybody would take a little time to respond in the chat. And we really just want to see where everyone is with their definition about inclusivity. And as you are putting in the chat box your thoughts or what you feel like your definition is, I also want to recognize that we have inclusion, which is highlighted as a community process, inclusiveness, which is described as a community outcome. And with that, there are 3 proposed tools to leverage these building blocks to increase community well-being. And the 3 tools are policy development and enrichment of communities. And that's a brief overview, but again, if you all could just drop in the chat box your definition, and we'll read out a couple of them, and we'll give you like a textbook definition, and then we'll give you the shorter of the 2. So I see that Miss Nancy has placed in the chat box her definition. I'm just wondering if anybody else wants to take part in it. Thank you, Mr. Mark. And just reading a couple of them, feeling part of deep connectivity with friends instead of acquaintances. Oh wow, y'all really pouring in now. Being open to diversity and inviting persons representing diversity to a group. Exactly. All of these are absolutely amazing definitions. And inviting others to the table. Yes, ma'am, Miss Jen. Creating space where everyone is heard. Exactly. Yeah, so all of those are absolutely amazing definitions. Yes, ma'am, Miss Lori. Um, so inclusivity, okay, the practice of providing equal access to opportunities and resources for people who might not otherwise be excluded or marginalized, such as those having physical or mental disabilities or belonging to other minority groups. And so, in short, it's the fact or policy of not excluding members or participants on the grounds of gender, race, class, sexuality, or disability. So that is what inclusivity is. All of those are building blocks in order to enrich communities. And communities can be social groups, actual communities, several different spaces. Um, so the question that we want to ask to you guys is, why is inclusion important? So if you could tonight, and I just want to emphasize tonight, we are really asking everybody to really just fully participate. There is no right or wrong answer to what we have going on tonight. We just really want to hear from you guys because these sessions are important to us, but we also want to create space to be able to have these conversations around things that we wouldn't normally talk about in a regular setting. So we want to build comfort where a lot of us are uncomfortable. I know that this is a vulnerable space for me. So I hope that we all can be open, honest, sincere, and forthcoming with each other, because that's how we're going to find comfort in these uncomfortable conversations. So I thank you all for oh wow, y'all really got it rolling in now. Because it's morally right. Exactly. Yeah, seeing from other people's standpoint, having more potential for creative and solutions when our voices are included. Exactly. We can learn from others' perspectives. It's critical to healthy functioning society. Exactly. And that's exactly what we need, you know, to know about inclusion and being able to include other people who don't necessarily look like us, but can bring about a focus on the things that we are doing. And so I know that that was like a quick run through, but I'm going to pass it to Miss Margot, and she's going to do our first exercise.
So we're going to send you to little breakout rooms where you can have short conversations. Not they will barely touch the surface, I recognize. And hopefully they'll whet your appetite for more. We're going to do breakout rooms a number of times today. And so in this first breakout room, question is, what do we need to do or change to be a more inclusive organization? ECA, the elephant in the room here is that ECA has historically and up till now, has been a pretty exclusively white, well-educated, and probably relatively well-off, financially well-off group of people. And so we really want to look hard at this question of what can we do to change that and be a more inclusive organization? What prevents us from being more diverse, do you think? And what do you think we need to do to change this so that we are more diverse and more inclusive? So we're going to send you to the breakout rooms, and hopefully you'll come back with some ideas and some insights to share with us. And then when we get back, we're going to do some sharing in the chat box again. So enjoy your conversations. And you'll be gone for a total of about 6 minutes.
For years and
I'll open the room right now. You'll have a little window that pops up and asks you to join the room. And then I'll send you a notice about 60 seconds before I close the rooms and when we bring you all back. So I'm opening the rooms now. I feel like I wave a magic wand and y'all come back.
Okay, welcome back. I know those were short little dives into these big questions, but I'm hoping now that you'll share in the chat, as many of you as possible, something from your breakout room in response to those questions. And let's see what kinds of things people came up with. Or maybe you just were confused and couldn't come up with anything. And that's okay to put in there too. I can see that people are typing. I'll just wait for those to show up. So having these kinds of talks, Kimberly says, Lori says, I feel like it's up to us white, wealthy, and educated folks to be intentional about educating ourselves. Once we know better, we can do better. Dennis says, proactively reaching out to minority groups to ask their needs and talk about relevant subjects. Kimberly says, go back 100 years and study the foundation to study the root causes. And I'm wondering if one of you would like to share a little bit more about what you wrote. Somebody who hasn't spoken yet. Maybe Dennis would like to say something, or Kimberly. You just unmute yourself to share if you're comfortable doing that. Or
In my group, I was in, the lady mentioned what I wrote down, go back to the foundation 100 years ago and study the foundation of stuff to figure out how it all started.
that it's helpful to understand the background. Yeah.
Yes.
this is Dennis. In our group, we were talking about, oh, I think I lost you.
No, we hear you.
Okay. In our group, we were talking about going to minority-based organizations where they are. So rather than going to tell them what we're doing and what they need, talking to them, getting to them where they live and asking about their needs. I mean, maybe with the entree of food drives and things like that. But also, I thought the idea of relevant subjects, this, for instance, is something that could be more appealing to them than the general topics we discussed.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that, Dennis, and you too, Kimberly. So I'm going to pass it back to Nico, and we're going to move on to our next topic for today, which is about access.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Miss Margot. But before I say that, I like what Mr. Dennis just said, and it actually reminded me of this conversation that I recently had. We're in one of my places of work, we're doing an evolving leadership structure to be more inclusive of BIPOC people in leadership spaces within the organization. And one of the consultants that came and spoke with us, she told us the best way to see how an organization is doing as far as BIPOC representation is to talk to the people of the BIPOC community who are in the organization. And that'll let you know how you're doing as far as an organization and being inclusive in doing that work. So thank you, Mr. Dennis, for bringing that back to my memory. And I thought that it was very important to share with you all this evening, afternoon, depending on what time zone you're in. But to get back to it, what is access? So in order to promote inclusivity, we need to offer access. What does access look like for you? Well, first off, what is access? What's your definition? And if you could respond in the chat, that would be great. Thank you, Ms. Jen. The ability to get what is needed. Ms. Margot, being able to enter, to join, to utilize. I can't see everybody's face, but I'm hopeful that you all are joining in and participating. Yes, ma'am, Miss Priscilla, a doorway. Okay, well, as others continue to put their definitions in the chat, we will put it up. Thank you, Ms. Jen. It's a means of approaching or entering a place, the right or opportunity to use or benefit from something. And, you know, just blatantly put, a lot of people don't have access to things. I know for me, living in a rural area, I don't have access to an immediate grocery store. Like I can't just go up the road and go to the grocery store. The grocery store for me is like 15, 20 minutes away. And that is the same for a gas station. So I don't have access to those things in 2021 because I live in a very rural area. Just wanting to know, what does access look like for you? What do you feel like you may have access to that others don't? Yes, ma'am, Miss Margot. Thank you, Miss Kara. Yes, ma'am, healthy food. A lot of places like where I live, we are considered, my area is considered a food desert. Healthcare and affordable wages. Yes, ma'am, Miss Kimberly. And one of my other jobs, I went out to Mississippi and we are working against this wood pellet plant. And in that particular community, one of the women told me that they make $8 an hour working there. So a lot of them don't even make livable wages. Yes, ma'am, Miss Jerry, being able to get the things that you need. I appreciate everybody participating in this portion, and I will turn it over to Miss Jen.
I almost forgot to unmute myself. So we're gonna do a fun little exercise. We did one of these last week, the Mentimeter. And so Nico's gonna drop the link to the Mentimeter in the chat. And so you can either click on the link, or you can use your phone and go to menti.com and enter the code 4006-6305. You're gonna go to Mentimeter and you're gonna answer the question, in what ways do you recognize your access? And answer that question with either one word or maybe a short phrase. Like, for example, I could say access to home loan. or you could find something that says one word explanation of how you recognize your access. And we're going to create a word cloud together. So I'll give you all a second to open that box or open that window and enter those into the Mentimeter, and then I will pull up the Mentimeter. Right, so we're starting to see some results pop up in the Mentimeter. Internet, healthcare, and as things get bigger, that means that multiple people have said the same thing. So healthcare right now, there's been a few of you that have responded with healthcare. So we recognize our access in places like credit, in healthy food, for financing, for cars and houses, access to nature, access to the internet, having a safe place to live, having a life that's obstacle free. We recognize our access in the information that we can get in healthcare for sure. I think that I think it's fun to be able to sort of capture our thoughts on these Mentimeter word clouds, and then have this to look back on and to reflect on over the coming months while we're going through this process together. I'll go ahead and leave this Mentimeter open for the next 24 hours. So if there's other things you want to add to it after the session's over, please feel free to go back and add things.
Okay, and I think we're going to move on to our next breakout room. And in this breakout room, maybe Jen can bring up that question. So as members of ECA, how can we create a space that gives access to BIPOC people? And if there's anyone here who doesn't know what BIPOC stands for, it's Black, Indigenous people and people of color. We want to make sure that we're not using jargon and acronyms that are unfamiliar. So again, you'll have 6 minutes in your breakout rooms to just brainstorm, a little bit about ways that we might be able to create space that gives more access to those people, whether it's in your local chapter or it's on the national level or both.
Okay, give me 1 second. I'm giving everybody a new room, a new group. So
and even if you're not part of a chapter, but you're thinking of starting a chapter or an action group, how would you create a space that gives access to those people from the get-go? And we'll wait while Jen gets those groups set up, breakout rooms set up, and then we'll let you go. I really want to just really offer my appreciation to those of you who were courageous enough and available to show up today. A lot of people watch, listen to this afterwards. They missed the opportunity for these conversations in person. And it takes some courage to be willing to show up for these conversations. So really want to thank each of you for being willing to be here with us today.
And I'm going to go ahead and open up the room. And again, you'll have 6 minutes. We'll give you a 60-second warning before we close the rooms. Have fun.
You cut us off.
Oh, sorry. Well, it's hard to fit all these deep dives into this 1 hour time slot. And we always cover a lot here. So Margot, you want to bring us back?
6 minutes enough. 6 minutes isn't enough to have a deep conversation.
It's not. We understand that these are not opportunities for deep conversations, but what we hope is that you'll take the little taste that you get in these 1 hour sessions and use them in the month between now and the next one, and have some of those deep conversations with people that you know, or where you live, or in whatever groups you're part of. So we're, giving you a little taste, and then it's like throwing the pebble into the pond.
Mhm.
You become our pebbles out there in the world. So
Oh,
thank
thank you,
you for being
Grasshopper.
here and wanting more. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
So just we're just if you want to add into the chat room again, there was anything any ideas that you had that you want to share with us and with other people about ways to give more access to BIPOC people. And so, and I just want to let everyone know that you can save, well, in the recording, they don't get the chat box, do they? All the saved chats, Jen?
I will actually be including a full version of the chat log in the email that goes out tomorrow.
Oh, okay, great.
Don't
Great.
worry
So
about
you don't even have to save it today. You will get that
all of
in an
it.
email. So
in
if there's
the-
anything you want to share with us, and then as you're thinking about that and starting to put those things in, Jen, Nico's gonna do a little more with us.
So the next thing, as everyone is putting in the chat box, is to understand a little more about a safe space. So access is often considered to be a safe haven for people who are privileged. Um, and so for you, well, for everybody, a place or an environment in which a person or category of people can feel confident that they will not be exposed to discrimination, criticism, harassment, or any other type of emotional or physical harm. And with that, like, I just want to move to like some examples of safe spaces, or examples of how to create safe spaces for others. And this is a list that has been compiled, and I'll just read a couple of them. Ask the group to devote their full attention to each person who speaks. Ask follow-up questions for clarity if necessary. Share what is valuable about someone's questions or comments. And explain what actions you will take to put those insights to use, and ask your team for their suggestions as well. And oftentimes, with access and the creation of safe spaces, once you get to those, you create allyship, which is the next thing that we're going to talk about. So, for you guys, we're going to talk a little bit about allies. So, if Ms. Jen, if you could pull up the next slide. And if you could all just put in the chat, what do you feel like an ally is based off of some of the information that I just gave you, and just what you have grown to know an ally to be, as you've been growing and learning, and being educated, and as an elder in this space, what do you feel like an ally is? Yes, ma'am, Miss Karen. Non-judgmental support. Someone who creates safe space for all. Yes, ma'am, Miss Lori. So an ally is, yes, speaking up when I witness discrimination or microaggressions. Exactly. Someone you can trust or who will support you. All of those are wonderful. An ally is someone whose personal commitment to fighting oppression and prejudice is reflected in their willingness to educate themselves about the different identities and experiences, challenge one's own discomfort and prejudices, learn and practice the skills of being an ally, take action to create interpersonal, societal, and institutional change. So, an ally is not just a person, an ally is an action. Um, and what we're going to close out with is this final question that Miss Margot, and we're going to stay in this room right here, and we're just going to ask this question. Miss Margot, is for you.
Okay, so just as a little pop-up discussion here, if anyone has any thoughts or ideas about how you as an ECA member can be an ally in your role as a elder climate activist. And so if you just put up your hand, I will try to see who's doing that. If you have something you'd like to share about how you think that you might be able to do that. Yeah, Mark. You got to unmute.
Yeah, I do. I think it's as simple as showing up and staying as long as you need to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish.
Okay. So showing up in what kinds of places? What do you mean when you say showing up?
In whatever places it requires. In other words, if there's someone that is doing a protest, for instance, and they don't want to be alone, and you show up with them in that spot, and you stay, you don't leave early, you stay with them in that time, and to accomplish what it is they wanted to accomplish at that time.
Great, thank you. Anyone else have something you want to offer us?
How do we let you know?
Put up your, wave to me, or just, who was that? You just spoke.
It's Nyana.
Oh, Nyana, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, I would just ask how I can be of help and go to where there's some action where I see the help is needed.
Great, and asking, how can I be of help?
Asking.
Not just assuming that they want a certain kind of help.
Yeah,
Great.
and not asking them to come to my place, but trying to be invited to go to theirs.
Okay, great idea. Anyone else have anything else you want to share? One more person. Just unmute yourself if you do.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you. I'm thinking the ECA newsletter that I get, I'm out in Washington, D.C., is so useful and informative that to share some of it with other organizations that I belong to, that's being an ally, because I select things that are, mutually of interest, and I just sort of send it out to the others.
Great, thank you. Okay. All right, I'm going to pass it back to you, Nico.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for participating in this week's session. I'm just grateful for everyone being here. And this is how you ally. Ally isn't just a person, it's an action. And you being here, hearing this, listening to it, processing it, and taking it back out into the world is how you ally as action. And so what we have created is an ally pledge. An ally is ask for permission, lean in for understanding, look for ways to support, and yield to see the world beyond your perspective. And the pledge is, I pledge to be a part of the movement and not a bystander of circumstance. I work with others to do what's helpful for us all. As we unite in activism, I understand that an ally isn't just a person, it's action. So if you all believe that you are allies, and if you're acting on allyship and in action, feel free to take the ally pledge. It will be sent to you all. And I believe I have, let's see, I think I have I believe I can drop it in the chat. Bless you.
I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. And so we thank you all for joining us. I have dropped it in the chat. I look forward to seeing each and every last one of you on our next one. And thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Everyone take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thanks for being here.